oh, it's so syrupy.
Yeah.
So why would you, I'm just asking, you've got a dolce and you got a schlocky.
These have so many things. Good food and drink and songs to sing. These have so longing now to touch your hair.
So that's definitely a Kondor gesture. You want to talk to us about what's going on here?
So this is like really both worlds at the same time, right? You have the pretty melody, the in real time on stage with grace narrative in the melodic material in the viola and cello, and then auxiliary viola and cello too, and that's why I'm struggling with that triplet line. Like I want that to be more in the otherworldly
Which
place.
triplet line?
Viola two and violin two. Like I want that to absorb more into the death world with the glisses and stuff.
You wrote schlocky here. Do
Yeah.
you want to help us define schlocky?
Yeah.
I would interpret schlocky as like so sweet.
Yeah.
It's so syrupy.
Yeah.
So why would you, I'm just asking, you've got a dolce and you got a schlocky.
I think dolce is the kind of thing I would write for a whole note to just have them warm it up and think of it as lyrical and pretty.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess the whole gesture, the idea is like something nice and pretty, and then it sort of descends into madness, right? That's kind of as I'm looking at it, that's kind of what I'm seeing in it.
That's the dolce side?
No, the whole gesture, the whole that whole page we're looking at.
Yeah.
Could you play back the music again, and I'll just take my description of it again and do better.
This is just the strings, right?
Yeah.
When we solo the strings without the effects, you can really hear this long gliss, this portamento.
Yeah.
And just how destabilizing it is.
Yeah, and the good intentions of the cello line getting just sort of obliterated and wiped away.
That's such a great way of putting it. Because that line at the start is so inviting.
Yeah.
Also, you writing a chord
Yeah, that's
flat.
a little. I don't think 2023 Dillon would do that. That's a little college. That's a little much. It's, if anything, asserting something to the player, like, hey, I've had some college, so... No, and it's also like OCD brain. I'm like, well, it just goes up and then back down, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah,
right,
which you have here as well, right? Or are you going down and
yeah,
then
it's
back
like
up?
OCD, like it needs to be symmetrical. It needs to blur and then come back in.
Yeah. Well, that's a very good way of putting it.
Yeah.
Blurring and coming back in.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of what's happening here. And then at the end of the line, everybody lands on that last eighth note.
Yes. This was when we were doing mixed notes, a big thing is like when these gestures end, someone can't be holding over, or there can't be a reverb. Like these things have to get sucked back into a vacuum, because it's this whole thing of like, with Grace's lyrics, picturing the death world and things emerging out of it and then getting like sucked back in, and we're back in reality,
Yeah.
So reverb tails, I was very specific about not wanting things to hold over, because then that puts it in the space with us, as opposed to like being shut back into a trapdoor.
Yeah. Which I think is also very astute, because that's something we do a lot in Grace's live arrangements. Obviously with different tools, we're usually not playing with strings, but there's a lot of like Grace layering loops, and it becomes more and more chaotic, and Matsu, our drummer, and I just getting more noisy, and then suddenly back to
It's
something very
such an
concrete.
important gesture, and live it's you have to really have discipline and rehearse it to get it to happen. Like so many things happen spontaneously live, but the sort of the lift the needle moment and stuff, it's always so much more effective when things just like stop together, but it's harder, so it happens less of the time.
Yeah. We also have some effects going on here. We've got the cassette thing again. You hear the pitch instability, and the cassette is also printed with this reverb that I apparently printed. And as the gesture grows,
Then gone. Yeah.
I sent more of it to the verb, so you get more of that effect as well.
Yeah, and it helps the whole thing swell up.
Yeah.
Really nice. I love that tape distortion you get on the cassette too. It's cool.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah.
There's a whole world on social media these days of people just doing weird wonky shit with tape loops, cassette loops, and I love it.
Shout out to Matsu. He's like such a great color drummer. Like he just has such a good sensibility for what frequency range he can play around in, and how to yeah, it's so intuitive for him,
Totally.
live and in recordings.
And as we get into this, as the groove becomes more constructed, as we get into this song, we'll see that his part on this song, I still don't understand how it works or like why it works. All of the beats fall where you would not expect them to fall in a typical groove, and yet somehow it still has this danceability to it. So early on, we can circle back to this, but early on, it's basically a deconstructed version of what it winds up being. 1, 3, 4. 1. He's coming off on every 16th note. Da, 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 right? And the bass is with him as well, kind of like displaced.
And now with my last breath I bind
Start to get a little bit of a backbeat there.
It's just a little death that keeps me from my
Cool. Okay. Do you want to talk to us about what the hell is going on here?
Play back again from there-ish.
Yeah.
So that's fading out of the death world into lyrical, pretty stuff. And then the death world is really having a bit of a spotlight moment. And then that is fading into that Bollywood thing that becomes where the strings kind of become like a horn section.
Yeah. And I mean, when I hear this moment, I visualize it as there's the black and white or, the sepia-toned thing in the background. And it basically like whatever is going on in there, like rips its way out of the film into the foreground, into the present.
Yeah, that was so effective, the way the reverb comes off and back on in the mix.
Yeah. I also think that this is a good indication of the kind of collaboration and back and forth that we had, because melodically, I mean, this is definitely something that you wrote. I would not have been able to write anything like all of these weird gestures, but it references melodically the intro of the song.
Yeah.
And so somehow you managed to take that and like kind of distort it and twist it into this other thing.
Yeah, the sort of implied chord progression from Grace da 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 loop. It's like you can. It's like a Ranger candy, because the hypothetical chords happening underneath it mean you have just all these melodic ideas that are kind of write themselves.
I want to see if we can solo a couple of these parts. There's going to be some bleed because they recorded together. Oh, we should also give shout outs to our string players who just crushed these very, very complex parts. We had Amanda Lowe on violin, Elise Frawley on viola, and Hamilton Berry on cello. And these are not easy parts to play, but they really
sound amazing.
Yeah.
I think the first time I arranged this for y'all, it was for a live thing, and I remember getting yelled at a lot by the players.
I recall that as well. Okay, I want to look at first viola 2 and aux viola, where you have these harmonic glisses.
Yeah.
Do I understand correctly that basically her finger is against the string and you're moving it so you're getting different harmonics at different points?
Yeah, you just get the overtone scale or just whatever the string wants to do. And this is very, looks more studied and cool than it is. Like, you know what I mean? It's practically just like making a pretty picture. Like, I'm like, well, if the cello starts on, or the viola starts on their fourth string and then switches to, when they get high, they switch to the third string, and then at the same time, the auxiliary viola starts high and goes low, it'll just create some kind of cool thing. Like, I'm not hearing in my head what it's going to sound like. I just know that it's going to sound some kind of, like, it's going to do the right kind of friction of contrary motion, and that, if they're on different strings, they're not going to accidentally line up.
Interesting.
And, you can do it as a double stop when you get to the bottom with the bottom two strings, and then you'll have a fifth doing this crazy rainbow of harmonics. And that'll be cool.
Let's see what it sounds like.
Let's hear what it sounds like
if they're soloed.
Let's hear how much they're faking it too.
You can hear a lot of the other parts, but you hear the like squeals.
Yeah.
The super high stuff.
And I'm half joking when I say let's hear how much they're faking it, because it almost like doesn't matter if they do fake it. Like, I'm saying if they nail that exact rhythm of, on beat 4 you have to be at the top of your range, and it's gonna just have this aleatoric quality of just and do the thing I want.
Sure.
And also the dynamics are really important to it too. That like it winds up being at the foreground, and the weeping part above it
Yeah.
winds up overtaking it, and
So-
then they all coalesce on that
Yeah.
horn section lick.
And now here's just the weeping part. This is violins 2 and 3. So
oh man,
cool.
so college. Yeah, I'm proud of that. I learned how to do that in college. Like I could, I wanted to sound like two different crying babies, but also kind of pretty, and I was able to figure out how to write that down like
Well,
that.
and sure, but more than just deploying some trick, you deployed it in a way that serves this moment.
Yeah, thanks.